Now, China in damage control mode after a Russian news agency reported 45 Chinese soldiers died in 2020 Galwan clashes. China's People's Liberation Army officially acknowledged for the first time on Friday the death of 5 Chinese soldiers who died during the border clashes. Now, the bloody Galwan clash happened in June last year with Indian troops in eastern Ladakh. 8 days ago, Russian government-owned news agency TASS had published an article saying that China had lost about 45 troops at Galwan. China's admission also comes 8 months after China refused to disclose details of casualties in the bloodied fight with India. Now, while India has mourned the martyrdom of 20 of its soldiers, Beijing had acknowledged casualties only to save its face. In fact, the admission of the casualties by PLA also coincides with disengagement of troops by both sides at the north and south banks of the Pangong Lake. Let's quickly cut across to Shiv and Abhishek Shivarur as well as Abhishek Balla joining us for more details on that. Shiv, let me cut across to you. Here's China almost finally being forced to admit that they did have casualties, but they claim to have only 5 casualties, while you have Russia there clearly saying or claiming, as per their reports, 45 of them were killed.
You know, this is not an admission at all by China, Nabila. Let's be very clear that this is China being forced into doing a bit of troubleshooting and damage control, because it has been completely cornered and exposed, not by India. Forget about India, because, you know, whatever India says, China says, this is lies, etc. That's propaganda. So, you know, that is understandable, because these are the two countries that are facing each other. But Russia, which happens to be a very close friend of China's, a very close ally of China's, has through its own government-owned news agency said 45 soldiers have been killed on the Chinese side in Galwan, a figure that has never been quoted anywhere before, certainly not here in India, is precisely what has made China suddenly panic and indulge in this damage control. Because it is weird for China, first of all, to name these martyrs and to honor them 8 months after the incident. You know, why 8 months? There is no festival right now. There is no particular commemoration day happening in China. So why now? Secondly, after what the Russian state-owned media had reported on the casualties, the Indian Northern Army commander picked up that figure. The Indian Army, remember, has never said anything about casualties, but I have seen their situation report from the Galwan incident, which said 16 Chinese bodies were handed back to the Chinese side on that particular day. So the one thing we can be sure of is that at least 16 Chinese soldiers, perished in that particular combat. So therefore, for China to now claim 5 is beyond idiotic. It's an embarrassing, fumbling attempt at propaganda, because they've been exposed by a third party, their very own ally and friend, Russia. That's all this is. This is not an admission or acceptance of any kind.
Absolutely. Shiv, let me cut across to Abhishek Balla. Abhishek, here there was claims made by China that initially there were no soldiers who were injured, and then as and when days passed by, they were almost forced to admit that they were casualties but never gave out a number. And now a Russian portal finally almost claims that 45 Chinese soldiers were killed, and Russia is a close ally of China. China still does not admit the numbers but claims only 5 were killed in the clashes. What exactly is the situation as per your observation?
It's pretty clear, you know, what has prompted China to finally come out with this acknowledgement. It's because of what the Russian agency has reported, saying that 45 Chinese soldiers were killed. And that's why this timing is extremely interesting. Also, at a time when disengagement has started, it's important to note that China finally making some sort of an acknowledgement that casualties were there on their side. The number might still seem much less than what the Russian agency has claimed, but it's taken a while for China even to acknowledge that. So it's very clear that it is only because there was a claim made by this Russian agency, a government Russian agency, that China was almost forced to make this acknowledgement.
Shivarur, thank you very much for bringing us those details. Let me quickly cut across to India Today's Gaurav Sawant, also speaking to Lieutenant General Y.K. Joshi, the Indian Army's commander, who led the offensive and defensive tactical and strategic operations against the People's Liberation Army. Here's what he had to say.
Over a period of time, you mentioned earlier that I've been here since 2010 in Ladakh. There was a time when, we had very limited forces. There were only 2 battalions which were looking after the entire eastern Ladakh. Hardly there used to be face-off. We used to meet each other. But over a period of time, as our focus is changing towards the northern borders, our infrastructure has improved in a very big way. Our force levels have improved in a very big way. We are now able to dominate our perception of the LAC in a better manner. So this, he was looking as a threat. And now I feel that as the, clarification of the LAC is drawing closer, as I feel that he is understanding, so he is wanting to push as west as possible his claim line, so that, when we sit down and sort of talk, he's able to, gain more areas. So probably that is the reason why he was trying to shift westwards. But then he got the message, that we will not allow unilateral change of the status quo on the LAC using force, despite the agreements that we have. Once we launched the, quid pro quo actions and we went and occupied Rangna Shinla, the amount of armor and mechanized forces we moved on the ridgeline. And then, the PLA reacted once they got the UDA cycle right. And then when their armor was sort of moving up and we had our red lines, absolutely clearly drawn, that was the time the moment was very, very tense. Balloon could have gone up any time. And it is the maturity, actually, of the Indian Army, the soldier who's sitting on the ground, with his rocket launcher, and the tank man with his, gunner, and the crosshairs, he sees the adversary's tank coming up, close to him. The easiest thing he has to do is press the trigger and open fire, which is a no-brainer, that is what we're taught in our training institutions, But to not press the trigger is what requires courage and maturity and grit and determination, And that is a time when we were able to stop him, without sort of opening fire. Over a period of time, as our focus is changing towards the northern borders, our infrastructure has improved in a very big way. Our force levels have improved in a very big way. We are now able to dominate our perception of the LAC in a better manner. So this, he was looking as a threat. And now I feel that as the, clarification of the LAC is drawing closer, as I feel that he is understanding, so he is wanting to push as west as possible his claim line, so that, when we sit down and sort of talk, he's able to, gain more areas. So probably that is the reason why he was trying to shift westwards. But then he got the message, that we will not allow unilateral change of the status quo on the LAC using force, despite the agreements that we have.
Now, India and China will hold the 10th round of Corps Commander level talks tomorrow. With disengagement at Pangong Lake complete now, the next round of meeting will discuss the future course of action. Disengagement at Gogra, Hot Springs and Depsang to be taken up during the talks as well tomorrow. After Pangong, a roadmap for other friction points will be discussed. India Today earlier showed you this exclusive satellite imagery that shows very well the full scale of disengagement underway in eastern Ladakh's Pangong Tso. It was here where India and China have been engaged in an intense military standoff since last May. Dozens of camps, storages and military vehicles parked at different locations between Finger 4 and Finger 8 have now been removed by the PLA as decided in earlier round of talks. Abhishek Balla joining us, more details. Abhishek, 10th round of Corps Commander level talks to now discuss disengagement from other friction points. Which are the other friction points and what could be expected in the next round of talks tomorrow?
Well, it's been decided that now that the disengagement is complete in Pangong Lake, the other friction areas, especially Hot Spring and Gogra, are likely to be discussed. These are still areas where, tensions are continuing. The situation remains volatile. Soldiers are in very close proximity to each other. The disengagement in Pangong was aimed at that the eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation can end and the troops can be pulled apart. Now that that's happened, Gogra and Hot Springs are the other 2 areas that will be discussed. Also, from an Indian point of view, India has been insisting that not just Gogra and Hot Springs, but even Depsang needs to be discussed for a complete de-escalation. Remember, Depsang has been tense for the last 6 to 7 years. There has been a build-up by the Chinese in areas that were controlled by India. Even though Depsang is not being considered as a friction point of this standoff that started last year, but India believes and maintains that if a complete de-escalation has to happen, it has to happen across eastern Ladakh and not just a few friction points where China attempted to change status quo last year in April and May.
Right. Thank you very much for joining us with those details, Abhishek.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.